I want to slow this conversation down today a little bit because there are 10 blanket statements that parents hear all the time that sound really comforting, but really they often just shut down parents from getting real answers, which is just not okay, right? It's not that they're said with bad intentions, they're just incomplete, especially when you look at how the nervous system actually works. So let's walk you through what these 10 blanket statements are. So, number one is they'll grow out of it. Kids don't grow out of things, okay? They grow into something different. So, from a neurological standpoint, the nervous system doesn't erase stress, it adapts around it. So, it creates new neural pathways to figure out, okay, what's this thing that's going on in my life and in our body, and how can we get around this thing? If a child is under stress early on and nothing changes, then what the brain does is it builds compensations. And that's why reflux can turn into picky eating. That's why sleep can turn into emotional dysregulation in the future. That's why early constipation can show up later as anxiety. So growth without regulation just means that more layers of compensation are going to be built, not that the problem is going to erase and go away. Number two is that's normal for kids. Normal is honestly just a really low bar. Normal just because it happens all the time, and a lot of kids are dealing with things like sleep issues and dysregulation and big emotions and all that sort of stuff. It doesn't mean that it's optimal. Common and normal don't mean optimal. When the nervous system is under stress, those struggles show up more often. So a well-regulated nervous system should move into stress and then return back to calm. And when it can't, symptoms become the norm, right? And again, normal isn't optimal. Number three is it's just reflux, or it's just colic, or it's just constipation. Those are descriptions, but they're not root cause explanations. I can't remember as an adult the last time that I didn't sleep well, or that I didn't poop well, or that maybe I was throwing up and not eating as well as I should, that I was a happy person, right? Reflux involves vagus nerve signaling, and constipation reflects autonomic imbalance. Colic is sensory overload with poor regulation. So all those systems are controlled by the brain, spinal cord, and nerve connection. So calling them just anything really ignores the neurological root cause of what's actually happening and going on outside of just what they're experiencing. Number four is that's just how toddlers are. Toddlers are supposed to have emotions, for sure, but they're not supposed to live in constant overwhelm all the time. A healthy nervous system can experience big feelings, for sure, but then it must shift back and reset, right? If a toddler can't settle, or they can't regulate, or they have meltdowns every single day, all day long, that's not age. It's not just because they're a toddler. That's a lack of appropriate capacity and an overwhelmed nervous system that just can't figure out how to calm down, okay? Number five is the nervous system is immature, just wait. This one drives me nuts. Yes, the nervous system matures, for sure, right? Our brains are developing and growing all the time, but it doesn't mature best by ignoring the signals, right? The things that are off and are happening. It matures through proper input, through feeling safe in the environment that it's in and feeling safe within itself, and also just appropriate regulation. So the vagus nerve develops through movement and also sensory experiences and calm to stress to calm cycles, meaning, hey, we're introduced to some sort of stress, but then we calm back down after we get through that stress, right? If the system is stuck in a stress and survival mode, then that maturation process slows, or it just doesn't happen the way that it's supposed to, because again, we start to create these neurological workarounds from the issue that's going on. So with waiting without support doesn't equal development. It equals delayed integration and delayed appropriate maturation and development. Number six is boys are just wild, girls are just emotional. That's not biology, that's labeling. I've got 3 boys and I have 2 girls, and I can get it. Like, for sure, boys are a little bit more aggressive, right? They do need a little bit more external stimulation, some wrestling, that sort of stuff to process and just like feel relaxed later in the day. But we can also see girls and boys that have similar ways of processing the different expressions of stress that their nervous system's experiencing. And so some kids will release stress through movement, some through emotions and talking things out, some through withdrawal, right, where they step away from the life of the party and they just like read some books. That was me as a kid. Behavior isn't the problem, and gender isn't the issue as well. It's that behavior is the output of the neurological input. So to say that it's specific to a boy or a girl just doesn't make sense, okay? Number 7 is if they're meeting milestones, then they're fine. Milestones are important for sure, and I want to be clear about that. But how the milestones are reached matters just as much as when they're reached. The nervous system, it develops in a specific sequence: head control, rolling, crawling, standing, and then walking, right? Essentially from ground up. Each step builds coordination, it allows appropriate integration, and even allows for appropriate vagal tone and stimulation in that aspect as well too. So when the sequence is rushed or it's skipped or compensated through tension, the brain still gets the job done, but with less efficiency and more stress. And that's why a child can hit milestones and still struggle later on in life with things like focus and balance and digestion and emotional regulation, because they missed those milestones in that sequence and didn't maybe stay in those steps for an appropriate amount of time. And so the milestones measure the output, but they don't measure the regulation itself, okay? Number 8 is babies don't need chiropractic care. This one drives me bonkers, okay? Babies experience enormous forces during pregnancy and birth. Their spine, cranial nerves, and their vagus nerve are still developing. So neurologically focused chiropractic care isn't about cracking a baby's back, it's about restoring clear communication between the brain and the body itself. And that's why we often see changes in sleep and digestion for babies, and just like appropriate neuromuscular tone and development, because we're getting things calmed down and restoring that proper communication from the brain to the rest of the body. Number 9 is you're just being an anxious parent. I want to just put a stop to this. No. You're not being just an anxious parent. Parents are biologically wired to sense nervous system stress in their children, and that's called co-regulation. Your intuition is your nervous system reading into your child's nervous system, often before symptoms become obvious at all. And that's not anxiety, that's awareness. And being in tune with your kids' nervous systems is a huge piece of the puzzle. We truly trust the mom gut. So if you feel like there's something going on and it's being brushed under the rug, it's a blanket statement, you're just being anxious, that's crap, and I'd find a different provider. Number 10 is let's wait and see. This one costs kids the absolute most. Early nervous system patterns become long-term templates. So the earlier that we support regulation, the less compensation the brain has to build, right? The less roundabout neural pathways it has to use to get through whatever it's going through. Waiting doesn't create clarity. Listening does. So if any of these statements have ever made you feel dismissed, you weren't wrong. Trust your gut. You weren't overreacting. You were noticing neurological signals. Trust your gut, your mom brain, your mom gut, your parent brain, your parent gut knows what's going on. And that's exactly where real healing should begin.